What's up? Welcome here to Lacrosse Now. I'm Travis Eldridge. He's Tom Eschen. We got another big show for you after a weekend of some results we saw coming and maybe some results we didn't see coming in college lacrosse. We got all that to talk to, plus a bunch of great guests.
Yeah, we got Jake Cates from Boston University. They are rolling, and we'll see how they do this weekend, but Jake was a great guest. And also Stony Brook Hofstra on Friday here on LSN. I get to be on the call for that. So we've got a couple of the new Stony Brook stars, Ellie, Masera, and Kailyn, Hart. We have them together, actually, so we'll get to talk to them, too.
But we're going to start with some segments here in the men's game to talk about what happened over the weekend in college lacrosse. And we're going to start with the segment called They Were Who We Thought They Were.
They are who we thought they were.
Well, they are.
Are you saying that in past tense?
Yes.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
see?
At right,
They are who we thought they were.
They at least had to say
we let
it
them off
first.
the hook.
Yeah, okay, there we go. Dennis Green, right?
You go first because I want you to tee this one off.
All right. They are who we thought they were, and I'm going with a game, and that's Johns Hopkins Syracuse. And obviously the rivalry and Dave Petramala going back to Homewood. You have so much history between these two. And I mentioned this off camera after our show last week, and we're talking about the game and what it meant. And I go, Travis, I don't know if it really means that much. And I think that we all learned that while watching the game. It was not pretty. Johns Hopkins, a good win, 10-7 over Syracuse. But, Syracuse outplayed Johns Hopkins almost in every single offensive category. Syracuse beat Hopkins in the game. They hit 8 pipes. So,
yep.
That wasn't anybody's fault. I'm not saying. It's just these two teams aren't there. And I think we need to all realize that yes, they have the names and they have the history, but these two teams are who maybe we had thought they were coming into this year, and maybe some of those expectations were outside of the realm of what they should have been, maybe for Syracuse more than anyone else, and even Hopkins at the beginning of this year. They are who they thought they were. These are not two teams that I think will even be in the NCAA tournament this year. So that's who they are. Great history, just not this year.
Chris Rosenthal hit the nail on the head with his tweet on Sunday during this game, and he tweeted, "If these guys were literally wearing any other jerseys, I would have been off doing laundry or playing Xbox or something for like the last 30 minutes." And he's right. Like, if this was any other lacrosse game, the way it was played, it was ugly. Like, Syracuse, their shots were, like, their shot percentage was, they hit a bunch of pipes. But
they took 25 more shots than Hopkins,
and they lost
by 3.
But some of them were ugly.
Yeah.
Like,
they missed
not
a
even
lot
close.
Of cage, and there was a lot taken. And obviously, the more you take, the more you're gonna miss. But if you're not even hitting the cage, that's a problem.
And it didn't feel big. Like Hopkins, Syracuse, even when maybe one of them's down, feels big.
Yeah.
It didn't feel, and it was a standalone game at 4 o'clock on Sunday. There was no other games to watch, and it didn't feel big. And I think it was because the play on the field wasn't there.
Right. The only thing that kept this game in terms of the national limelight was Petro going back. If you don't have that storyline, you don't have much to say about this game, right? It's Johns Hopkins, Syracuse, but other than that, there was really nothing I thought that was going to be really indicative of what these teams are going to do moving forward. It was a regular old game this time around.
And quite frankly,
that's who these teams are.
And quite frankly, it's a game Syracuse like almost felt like they had to have.
Yeah, well, more on that in a moment.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a little bit, but it felt like a game they needed to have. They didn't get it. Not so good. Anyway.
So, what's yours here?
I'm going to go.
Are who they thought they were.
I'm going to go to the battle for New Jersey. I was all fired up for this game, and
on a Friday night in New Jersey,
Princeton delivered. They were. It was the team that I had in my top 3 a week ago after they came up with a big win over Georgetown, and I said this team is for real. They play Maryland tough. They take down Georgetown on the road in like their first couple of games back from having not played all of last year. So they should only get better, and that's exactly what they're doing. They were terrific against Rutgers. They beat them 16-11.
Yeah,
the talent is there. Like, I think Michael Sowers took so much the attention back in 2020, and it was deservedly so. He was electrifying, one of the best players in the country. But Michael Sowers had been on that Princeton team for 3 years before, and that Princeton team wasn't having the kind of success they had until 2020 for a reason, because it felt like all the other pieces were finally there coming together. Well, now Michael Sowers is obviously gone, but all the other pieces are still there. And it's showing us that this team is still really, really talented, even when you take out that number 1. Alex Slusher and Chris Brown are both top 25 in in the nation in points per game. George Bond, the defenseman, who's an All-American candidate, hasn't even played the last couple of games.
Yeah.
So they're winning against Princeton, against Rutgers and Georgetown, 2 other top 10 teams, without maybe their best close defenseman.
All-American.
And one of the best in the entire country.
Yeah.
You do that, and he comes back healthy. Like, look out. Team's terrific. In goal, Eric Peters, 21 saves against the Scarlet Knights.
Yeah.
They have all the pieces.
Yeah.
I am really impressed by Princeton. They may be the best team in the Ivy League.
Yeah, and they turned it over 15 times. Rutgers did only 7 in that game. Princeton still puts that many on the board, and that tells you the face-offs going the way of Princeton. I'll turn this on its head here. They are who they thought they were with Rutgers on my end on this time, because Rutgers, number 3 in the nation. We said it after the Stony Brook game, in which they only won by 1. If there's more time left, who knows what could have happened there. But after that, I'm like, they didn't look like the number 3 team in the country at that point, and they aren't the number 3 team in the country. Rutgers, a nice team, but not a top 5 team in the nation, and I think that game against Princeton proved just that. You can't go 12 of 31 and face off and expect to be able to beat some of these top-tier teams who are just so much more efficient on the offensive end where they can make those count. So I think that Rutgers is who we thought they were. They're not a top 5 team.
They're probably a top 10 team, top 12 team. They're not a top 5 team.
I think you put them around 9, 10, around there right now because of their wins they had over Army and Loyola.
They're fine.
Nice, fine wins, but nothing spectacular. And if you want to be a top 5 team, you have to go out and dominate and then win games like this, and you didn't do it.
They're good, not great.
Yeah.
I think Princeton is showing us they have the ability to be great. Now, I don't know if they are Virginia, Maryland great, but they have to be in that maybe second-tier conversation. Rutgers was the team, from what we had seen so far, and all the different pieces they brought in. All right, we think they can be good. How good are they? And I think we're starting to see that now.
Yeah. All right. So let's move on. My next, they are who they thought they were. It's kind of in the same vein. It's Michigan, and they go and lose at Harvard, 14-9. This is another kind of funny stat game. Michigan took more shots, had fewer turnovers, won more faceoffs, and they
dominated the X.
They had advantages in some places, but this is one of the times that they were really tested. Harvard went on, I think, a 4-goal run in the first, and Michigan hadn't really been punched in the face just yet. And I think you probably don't know who you have until you get punched in the face. Michigan does. They tried to respond, tried to hang around. This game, I don't know if ever was really that close. So Michigan is who we thought they were. They go just 2 for 5 as well on extra man opportunities. If you want to be the offense that we thought you were, or didn't think you were after putting up 20 goals, plus in their first 4 or 5 games or so, you have to be able to do that against tough teams, Ivy League teams in Harvard, and they did not get the job done. And it was sort of who we thought Michigan was all along. Yeah, they've been a nice story to begin this season, but once you start playing good teams from other conferences, and obviously the Ivy League has come on the scene here in the month of February into March and said, no, we're still here. And other conferences, Big Ten, Patriot League, ACC, all learning that the hard way, and Michigan was one of those teams.
I'm not going to say I told you so, but I spoke about this. I spoke about this on Thursday. This was the first time that Michigan played the type of athletes that they're going to face in the Big Ten. Harvard across the back, if you look at their starting close defenseman, goes like 6'2", 210, 6'1", 200, and like 6 foot 195. Those are the defensemen you're going to face in the Big Ten. Guys that can not only keep up with you foot speed-wise, but are going to physically dominate you. And my question for Michigan was, okay, scoring 20-plus goals against these other teams is great, but when somebody is able to match up with you physically and maybe is superior to you offensively, physically, on the defensive end, what are you going to do? And I think we found out with Harvard, and Harvard also got a terrific game from Kyle Mullen in goal, who made 12 saves. But the athletes of Harvard, and that leads me into Harvard being who I thought they were going to be, which is I think they're a really talented team. Like, this team has all sorts of top recruits that have come into Jerry Burns' program over the last couple of years. He's recruited really well since he took over that job, and we're now starting to see some of the fruits of that labor. It's like this team can be in the mix for an Ivy League title. The question at Harvard has never been, do they have the talent? It's been, when you get on the field, what does that talent look like, and can you put it all together? Well, I think Harvard team is starting to have the makings of a team that can put it all together.
It's really interesting for Jerry Byrne in taking the job when he did, and it's almost as if you launch a new program You know what I mean? Like we talked to Emily Boissonneau of Pittsburgh a few weeks ago and talked about the startup, and you've got a couple years to be able to develop things. And Jerry Burns sort of has gotten that at Harvard, right?
Yeah, because you had the reset of 2020 and then a whole year where you didn't play.
Right. So he's been able to sort of put everybody in the places and see exactly what he has. And that didn't have to be tried out on the field. I know we wish it was. I'm sure he does too. But you got to look, a little on the bright side here and say, well, he's been able to evaluate the entire time, and now he can put people in the right spots to succeed and be able to match up, like you said. And that's where the matchups come into play, and use those athletes to the best of their potential, which we saw him do at Notre Dame for years. So now he gets to do that at Harvard as the head man on the entire squad. So I think that's another aspect of Harvard's success here too.
What I will say is I'll be fascinated to see what Michigan learns from this Harvard game when they play Notre Dame, because that's another team with those kinds of athletes.
At Notre Dame Saturday.
It's a huge game this weekend.
So that will curtail us.
Hold on, I've got one more.
Oh, you got one more?
I've got one more here.
Who we thought they were.
Also leads us into it. Ohio State. I said it on Thursday. If Jack Myers goes off and has points, this Ohio State team can hang with just about anybody in the country. It's exactly what he did. Myers goes for 4 goals, 3 assists, another 7-point performance, and it was a huge bounce-back effort for him after the loss to Cornell. And I feel like Ohio State, I think, has to be in that top 10 conversation. I don't know if they're great, but I think they're very good in that kind of Rutgers-type scenario in terms of top 10 team.
I think they're better than Rutgers.
I think they're better than Rutgers too, but in that same category.
They've played good competition this year. They've competed. They've won games as well. They've won big games like that one this past week.
That Harvard win looks good.
Yeah, they go.
And I thought it was going to look good.
Beat North Carolina
dominated.
As well. And like we said, I thought it was almost the Cornell game was just, it felt like that was just what was going to happen. You know what I mean? But you might not have seen that going in, but you look, okay, everything sort of added up to Cornell sort of showing everybody what was going on there.
But the question is, and there are not a lot of Adlers across the country in terms of guys that can match up against Jack Myers the way he did for Cornell. But Big Ten's got some really good defensemen. Has that shown some sort of recipe for success against Jack Myers? Because it seems like he's the guy. He is the X factor this year for this team in this offense. When he's on and he's distributing and is able to score and do a little bit of both, this team is going to be really difficult to beat. And they're playing a little bit faster this year. It's something Nick Myers has learned over the last couple of seasons, spoken about it to a couple of different people about playing a little bit quicker, taking some more chances. And if Jack Myers can can kind of be the conductor of that whole orchestra on offense, this team's going to be really, really good.
Yeah, and I think that they have that potential, and they've done almost enough at this point in non-conference. If they do pretty well in Big Ten, they get themselves in the tournament.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, they've got wins over Notre Dame and North Carolina. Those are teams they're going to be competing with for bids.
We'll see if those teams get in.
So
that's our next question here.
Which leads us to a segment that I felt like we had to do. And we have to talk about the ACC. Because when we came into the year and you had 4 of the 5 teams in the top 10, Syracuse was just outside at number 12, and all the talk was about all the depth that this conference had. Coming off a great year last year, you put 3 teams in the Final Four.
Oh, yeah.
It was deserved. However, what we've seen from this year has me legitimately concerned about how many ACC teams can get in, because there's no tournament and there's no automatic qualifier. So everything has to be off of either reputation or what you did in the non-conference, because you have to build up the conference in order for those conference games to matter when North Carolina knocks off Notre Dame here in the next month or so, or when Syracuse beats Duke. That has to look like a good win. How good of a win are these going to look like when we go through this non-conference?
That's the question, because I don't know at this point how good they will look. Lacrosse Reference, I think, just put out their statistical bids per league, and right now they have the ACC at 2. So at this point, that would probably be Virginia and North Carolina, which is notwithstanding. I mean, I couldn't believe, North Carolina is the second best team in the ACC right now. I think Duke is on its own level. Of course, they lose to Loyola last weekend. I just feel like that people know that they'll be there in the end. But go back to the non-conference schedule, Travis. So you've got 3 times this season in which And you look at now, it's the current top 20 in which I'm referencing. 3 times this year in which an ACC team has beat a top 20 team that wasn't already an ACC team.
Yeah.
That was North Carolina over Brown. Brown's right now 15th in the nation. North Carolina over Johns Hopkins. Hopkins is 18th in the nation. And Virginia beat Hopkins 19-8 as well.
Yeah.
3 times. Those are 3 top 20 non-conference wins for ACC teams out of all of them. That's everybody. That's Syracuse, Notre Dame, Duke, Virginia. That Virginia even included in that. And we've said a lot of good things about Virginia. They've blown some people out. But yet, non-conference, they haven't done anything all that special either. So, yes, it is Virginia, and I think there is. We saw with the Syracuse game, it almost feels like, yes, Virginia's great, but maybe everybody, instead of being here this year, is a little bit farther down. And because you look at the way Virginia's competed against these other ACC teams, and they have, I mean, North Carolina was around for a little while, but I don't think there's any doubt in that game. There was never a doubt.
It felt like Virginia had a pretty good hold on that throughout a good portion of the second half. I mean, I wrote down all the wins, and like you said, like, what's the best win? I mean, Notre Dame's beat Detroit. They're 16th in the country now, Notre Dame is. Duke's now at number 14. Their wins are Robert Morris, Vermont, Manhattan, Denver, Delaware, High Point, Richmond. So, like, High Point, Richmond, or Denver, I guess, is your best win.
None of those teams are ranked. None right now.
Right now, Denver's not ranked.
None of those teams are ranked right now.
Carolina, you mentioned at 10. And Brown maybe is their best win. But Hopkins, Denver, too. Syracuse, all they've beaten is Holy Cross and Hobart. And then UVA's got Air Force, High Point, Towson, Syracuse, Hopkins, and UNC. Like, so UNC's they're I guess the one you hang your hat on. And I mean, at this point, I think you're right. It's like 2, because here's the only thing that could change it. It's this weekend. This weekend is so big for the ACC for the rest of the year. Like, this my feeling may determine everything, because you got Notre Dame playing Michigan. Notre Dame can't lose that game.
That's a must win.
Like, they can't lose the game because we talk about big games, and sometimes it's hyperbole at this point of the year. But it's because leagues like the Big Ten have an automatic qualifier. Like, Hopkins' win over Syracuse was nice, but, like, not nearly as big as Syracuse having to beat Hopkins because they don't have the AQ at the end of the year. Like, Hopkins, if they go on some magical run and wins 2 games in May, and somehow somebody knocks off Maryland, can get the AQ in the Big Ten and punch their ticket without winning another game. But Notre Dame has to beat Michigan. Because you lose another game against a Big Ten team, Michigan and Ohio State are going to automatically have to be above them in terms of the pecking order. UVA plays Maryland. That game is gigantic for the ACC as a whole, because it gives Virginia as a team, who at that point would be number 1 in the country, as a team that if you knock them off, it looks like an impressive win that brings everything up.
Resume, yeah.
And then, there's one more game that's not this weekend, and it's in a couple of weeks, Syracuse and Cornell. That's another one that, in terms of number-wise, even if it's not for Syracuse to make the tournament, can boost up Syracuse's profile so that wins over Syracuse look better for everybody else.
Yeah.
So those are the 3 games. Outside of those 3 games, there are no other opportunities for the league to impress.
Yeah, and it is amazing, we were talking about this before the show today, and why this has happened to the ACC, and I think it's the Ivy League, because you look at the beginning of the year, we talked about this in a previous show, it was Big Ten, wow, they're back, they played each other every time in conference, look at how good they're looking outside of conference play, because they're back outside of conference play for the first time. And then that quieted down a little bit because the Ivy League started. And then you see these wins getting plucked off by a Harvard or Cornell or Penn. All these Ivy League teams have come back into the fold, and they've carved out their niche again. And maybe that is one of the reasons that we saw the ACC do so well last year, because don't forget, Big Ten just played themselves. And then you had the Ivy League, who wasn't a part of this. So you have these power conferences. The ACC was sort of on their own little thing where they were able to give themselves a little bit more of a boost while not having to compete against these big conferences on a weekly basis. So the ACC last year, all over the place, all in. This year, now they're more regularly competing with the big conferences, which are being sort of exposed a little bit.
I would argue it's also somewhat cyclical here, too, because if you go back a couple of years ago, it was the Big Ten's time. It was the Big Ten all of a sudden, and actually it was a couple of years ago, they actually kind of hurt themselves with the Big Ten tournament, because it was like almost like they probably would have gotten 5 teams in the NCAAs, but because there was that cutoff and then they didn't have another game, like it was like, all right, well, the top 4 are in, we can't get that 5th team in, when maybe if there wasn't a tournament, you could have, because of how good the league was as a whole. But in years past, you've seen the ACC beat Big Ten teams. They haven't done it this year.
No.
And I don't know what it is. I mean, for Duke, I think, is the one that's maybe the most head-scratching with some of these losses. Like the Jacksonville loss, okay, you sum it up to February lacrosse at Duke, and they're still learning. This Loyola loss against a Loyola team that has not played inspired lacrosse, let's be honest, for the good portion of the beginning part of the year. Like, they've lost to Towson. And like they've lost games that they just shouldn't lose. And so for that Duke team that looks like they've got more talent than almost anybody in the entire country, for them to not figure out a way to win a couple of these games against whether it was Penn up on Long Island or Loyola, I think that has to be one of the more disappointing things because like Notre Dame losing to a bunch of teams that are now top 5 in the country. Okay, like you can excuse that. Like
I don't know, but you have to win one of them.
No, I know. You expect them to win
one.
You expect them to win one, but like if they lose those, they could still be the 7th or 8th best team in the country. We just don't know it yet.
Yeah.
But like Duke to lose a bunch of games that they usually win a couple of those. Like they usually beat a Loyola, or they're going to find a way to beat Penn, and that raises everybody's profile. I think to me is one of the biggest surprises.
Yeah,
and maybe they're just young.
Well, they're
like,
young,
offensively.
And we know the philosophy early in the season for Duke is very introspective, a lot of fundamentals, techniques, and working on their own stuff. So I think once you get into the meat of the conference play, that is when, if you're going to use the 2 as the barometer, that's when Duke and Virginia sort of just run away with this thing, right? And they do enough that they can get, and Duke name recognition will get themselves in.
I guess that's what you're counting on at this point, because like most years, you're right. Like it's not a big deal. This year, like, does that strategy work?
I mean, it's not going to be easy. I think there's a lot of competition, especially
like Notre Dame. Like Pat Cavanaugh is supposed to be one of the best players in the country. Like there's a real possibility he's not playing in the tournament if they don't beat Michigan.
Right, because there's only so many spots.
And they may still not make the tournament if they don't beat Michigan. They don't beat Duke or Virginia?
Right, and that's it. It's Virginia we know is in, and it's maybe a battle for the second spot.
It's crazy to think about.
It's a battle to be the second team out of the ACC to make the NCAA tournament. You know, there's only so many spots, and we know Virginia's probably going to get in no matter what. And then you have Duke, Carolina, Notre Dame all fighting for a second spot. That could be the scenario right now as we sit here in mid-March?
One thing I do think about with this is how the ACC, they got rid of the tournament because they felt like, because it was kind of meaningless, honestly, because they, like they weren't playing for an AQ. It was just like a way to celebrate the end of the season and get a couple of more games that boosted your RPI. You remember Syracuse back before they joined the Big East, when they were a independent and they just would cruise into the NCAA tournament every year. And it was one of the years they didn't make it that was kind of the start of maybe we do need to join a conference. I wonder if a year like this, if they do only get 2 teams in at the end of the year, does it spur the coaches and the conference to rethink how do we figure out a way, whether it's another conference member to get men's lacrosse or it's a way to find another team that works, and there aren't a lot that fit the ACC model. That's not an easy thing to, and it's not something they do in any other sport, really, in terms of bringing in, it was talked about with Hopkins before they joined the Big Ten. But does it spur the need to get a 6th team in so they do get an AQ?
Yeah, I think that's on the table. That would have to be on the table, I guess.
Like, I just wonder if it's a year like this, is that what it takes for that to start building a little bit more traction than maybe what we've seen?
Right, because it's like you have to win these games at this point of the year.
Now, it might be a year that just sticks out like a sore thumb, which I think it is, because they still have tons of talent in this league. There's still really good teams. But there are also really good teams that don't make the NCAA tournament.
And there's also really good teams in other conferences as the talent continues, the pool continues to grow, and you get the Ivy Leagues back into the conversation, and that changes a lot of things.
You know who's a really good team in another conference right now?
Who?
Boston University. The Terriers. They're undefeated. They're off to a terrific start, coming off a big win over Bucknell, and we had a chance to catch up with one of their standouts so far this season, Jake Cates. So coming off another win, we have Jake Cates from BU joining us now. Jake, we were talking about this just before we started getting going. You guys off to a great start, undefeated so far this season. When did you feel it? Like, could you feel in the fall like this was a team that you felt like kind of had it gelled together to get off to a good start here this year?
Yeah, so as I kind of like mentioned earlier, in the fall we were kind of counted out by like a lot of the media polls. Like in the Patriot League, we were predicted to go 5th overall. So, we kind of had that chip on our shoulder, like coming off like our Colgate loss last year in the quarterfinals. So coming into the season, we were really, looking to prove something. We didn't really have any players named in, the all league mentions, which we didn't really care about. We were really focused on ourselves, and our coaches really, just drilled that into us to focus on ourselves, and, good things will come. So, we're off to a hot start. We knew we were capable of playing how we've been playing. And honestly, we're kind of trying to figure out where our ceiling is right now. And we're, just looking to improve each week.
What do you think after obviously the great start you guys are off to with some nice wins, some dominant wins at that? What should the rest of the nation know about BU this year? Like, what do you want people that they might not know? What should they know?
That's a great question. I'm going to start that off by saying Matt Garber. He's one of my roommates, best goalie in the nation. We've been saying it. I've been shooting on him. Some of the plays he makes in practice in the games are unbelievable. And, he doesn't get the recognition that he probably should. He's a guy that I think any coach in the country would be lucky to have. He's been an animal for us this year. And also, our defense has just been lights out this year. We were talking earlier, I think we're number 2 right now in goals against. Judd Lattimore has the defense on lock, and, they've been playing amazing. Our transition defense has been, unbelievable. And then the face-off X, Connor Calderon, has just been absolutely balling out for us. We brought him in from Maryland, and he's just like such a great team guy. He gets along with everyone well, and he's like the scrappiest kid I've ever met in my entire life. So
perfect for face-offs, right?
Exactly, yeah. He's not afraid of any matchup, that's for sure.
Piggybacking off of that, because I think you guys jump into the top 20, and as somebody like myself who votes in it, you have to keep a track of everybody coming up. And you guys knocked off Bryant. You had a really impressive win over UMass, and so all of a sudden it's like, all right, we got to pay attention to the Terriers. But I think most of the national landscape, they probably don't know much about you. So how would you describe the style in which you guys are playing this year?
So I'd say offensively, our style is really free flowing. Oak Corner, Mike Slippo has always kind of had that mindset. He lets us play really free. We're kind of formless. We play together, and we have an experienced offense. Our attackmen, Vince, Tim, and Louis have been playing with each other for the past 3 years. It's been the same lineup. And then, at the midfield, we have a bunch of talent who's kind of coming together and gelling. So yeah, we play a really relaxed style of lacrosse on the offensive side. And then, we ride like crazy. Every, team in the nation is starting to realize that we're a 10-man ride team. So we put a lot of pressure on different guys, turn the ball over a lot, and it leads to a lot of different opportunities for us.
Mike Slippo, ex-Ithaca Bomber, by the way, in case anybody's. I'm also one of those. Mike and I were in the same. I think we're in the same class. Anyway, you mentioned the free-flowing offense, and you guys seem like to have a knack for the highlight play. Is that something I'd imagine that's embraced quite often at practice and in games? Right.
Yeah, practice is like a highlight tape. I wish there was more cameras around at practice, because the stuff that some of the guys on our team are doing is ridiculous. And everyone, Coach Poley doesn't really, he doesn't encourage it, but you throw a BTB pass and, kind of trickles by the guy and goes out of bounds. He's not really on you. He wants us to play that free flowing, smooth style of offense. He wants us to play, relaxed and, just play our game.
No, it's worked out so far. What's been the biggest key for you guys in what you've done? If you could put a nail on the head.
I think mentality is probably the biggest thing. We have culture Mondays every week, and we talk about kind of our preparation going into the next game. And our mentality this year has just been different. Everyone's excited to go out to practice. Everyone's lifting hard in the weight room. Everyone's picking each other up. And we kind of just have that, we can't be beat mentality. And, we haven't really had a massive test for our team since I'd say week 1 when we played Merrimack. It was a 2-goal game. So we're kind of really having that dog mentality for when we do get into a scrap, which is probably going to come pretty soon, so just we can pull away.
How important, I guess, and how gratifying has this season already been for you, knowing that you hadn't had to play a lot of lacrosse the last couple of years? The 2020 season, everybody knows what happens there. And you just played 2 games last year, Jake. I mean, being able to come back from all of that, what's that been like for you?
I mean, it's been awesome. This has by far been my favorite year playing lacrosse in my career. I'm excited to go out there every day. COVID, we played 6 games. We went 3-3. We come back, I play in the Merrimack game. I get hurt in the Army game. I end up not playing, and it was, it was upsetting because I've been waiting to play ever since the COVID season, got canceled. Kind of felt like one of the Ivy guys. I was sitting on, my couch every week and I was watching all these guys play lacrosse, wishing I was out there. So I kind of felt like I was in the same boat as them. So this summer, just put my head down, had a lot of fun with it, shooting around as much as I can in my backyard, really getting back to like feeling like I'm a kid again, not making it a chore, going out there and just like slinging the ball around with my buddies, lifting hard, and, just having an awesome fall and coming in, the spring ready to win and ready to compete and pretty much just like having fun. I think that's key.
And probably feeling healthy, right? I mean, it sounds like you feel pretty good. That's got to be refreshing. Yeah.
Very, very refreshing. Yeah.
Good.
That's good. Hey, you come from Maryland, and you went to Our Lady of Good Counsel, which has like a long list of some pretty talented athletes across all sports. Who's your favorite athlete who's come from your high school?
I mean, that's an easy one. It got to be Stefan Diggs.
Okay.
You'll hear me bragging in the locker room, like at any given moment about, Stefan. Like he has to be my favorite receiver in the league right now. I mean, we have the Snyder family too, Olympic wrestlers, Midge Purge, Olympic soccer player. The list goes on. We had like 3 guys playing in the Super Bowl this year. So Good Counsel was always just like a breeding ground of just like talented, like football, wrestling, all types of like recruits. So it was an awesome scene in high school for sure.
So did you switch from like a half Vikings fan to like half Bills fan?
I'm a Stefan fan. So
okay,
and
fair enough.
I like Josh Allen too. So I'll root for the Bills any day of the week. I'm a Washington fan. So, I mean, I've always supported Kirk Cousins. It's fun to watch him throw picks in the red zone when he's playing for the Vikings and not Washington. So, I'm glad he
gets
over
paid
there.
though. Everywhere he goes, he gets paid. He's got the business aspect down.
What's your feeling on the Commanders?
I wanted to keep it at the football team. I thought it was like, it was kind of like a meme. It was funny, and I was all about the football team. And like a lot of soccer teams are like FC or like they don't really have a mascot necessarily. So I was totally fine with just keeping it at that. The Commanders, yeah, I'm not on board quite yet. But I guess we'll see.
Yeah, are you still at advertising? Is that what you're studying?
Right. So I'm advertising right now. I graduate this spring, and then I'm planning on coming back for a 5th year at BU. And I'm kind of trying to feel through the different master's programs that they have. But I think I'm going to end up in real estate development.
Oh, okay.
Wow. Okay.
I guess that all comes in promotion and all that. I guess your promotion of the BU team this year. What would be the head? How would you put a campaign together to help get you guys some notoriety here?
That's an interesting question. I think first off, we have a great media team here who's been capturing like all of our awesome clips, all types of BTBs and flips and stuff. So I'd probably put it in their hands right now, be maybe like an understudy for them.
You're the product, right? You're the property here. You're the one being sold.
I'll let them pump out, an unbelievable video like they know how to do, and maybe put my name really small in the corner.
Jake didn't know that this was actually going to be like a pop quiz for his class that's coming up later today. This one's maybe this one's easier, maybe it's harder. Being from Maryland, like, are you a Maryland crab guy, or now that you spent time in New England, do you go lobster? Like, if you had to choose.
I mean, that's just like a no-brainer. I'm Maryland crab guy all the way. The blue crab has been, a constant in my life since I can remember. My grandma, like, growing up, just like cooking crabs, going crabbing in Ocean City, Maryland. Growing up, going to Ocean City, Maryland every summer and like eating crabs has just been like a huge part of my childhood. So yeah, definitely the Maryland crab.
Do you like the lobster around Boston area?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I'd had a legit lobster roll until I came to BU, and I've had a lot of opportunity to have lobster at BU. So I'm a fan of the lobster roll, but it doesn't touch the blue crab.
Yeah.
Cold or hot?
I'm a hot.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm with you.
lopsided.
Yeah.
Sure.
Same page. Yeah. Good call.
Glad.
All right, well, Jake, that's all I got. Tom, you got any
Yeah,
more?
Jake, appreciate the time, man. Looking forward to seeing you guys back in action. Of course, a couple games, big ones for you coming up, Holy Cross, and then next week, Harvard. So good luck in those, and we appreciate the time, man, and keep it rolling, all right?
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
Great having Jake on. Now let's transition to the women's game with a segment that we are calling Where is the Love? Yes, an ode to the Black Eyed Peas back in the day. I think Justin Timberlake was on that song, wasn't he?
Was he?
Yeah, he was part of that.
Okay.
Some sort of NSYNC iteration, but
Hashtag throwback.
Where is the love?
Throwback
is the question.
Tuesday.
Go look on Apple Music. Do the Apple
Spotify.
Music. Go with the Apple Music version of that. Okay, so what teams aren't getting enough love for the women? So
Can I go first?
you may begin.
Arizona State.
Oh.
Where is the love for the Sun Devils? Where is it? Because if I looked, and when I did my top 25 poll for the women's, I looked at the different results from this weekend, and I was shocked to see their score against Colorado. Dominated the Buffaloes. They won 20-6. So then I did some more searching because Arizona State, obviously a program that I've had my eye on because they're a relatively new program in the sport. Remember when they launched? It was a great hire to bring in Tim McCormick from Northwestern, former assistant for the Wildcats. So I started looking at what they've done this year.
Yeah.
Their only losses so far this season are to Michigan by 2. Not a terrible loss.
No.
And to Northwestern, which is certainly not a terrible loss, something that just about like half the teams in the top 25 have done at this point of the year. And so they dominate a Colorado team who was in the top 25 at the moment, and then they're not in it. And Colorado's still there.
Colorado does have a couple good wins.
Where is the love for Arizona State? Where is it? The Sun Devil, what else did they need to do? They got Stanford this weekend, and so on Friday night, they take care of Stanford. Hook them up, voters. Get them in the top 25. I don't think they've ever been there. We need to get Arizona State in. They deserve to be in this week. That is a huge. They beat them by 14 goals.
Yeah, they dominate. It was. I looked at that score. I was like, you got to be kidding me. Like Colorado's had a pretty good resume
Colorado's
this year.
been a good team.
They've been really solid. And they looked like they were, moving themselves up a little bit higher in the ranks out there out west. But yeah, Arizona State gets that win. They deserve to be there.
It's clear not enough people paid attention to this game because if they did, Arizona State would be in the poll. And I know the poll doesn't mean anything, but come on, like for a team, they talk about the different check marks for Tim McCormick in taking over this program. Like that's one of those check marks. Put yourself in the national rankings. Like that's a big check that it kind of puts the program on the map.
Yeah.
And so they deserve to be there.
You got to go back out there and try to get another one then at this point because
hey, if they beat Stanford on Friday and they're not in the rankings, we're going to bring this back. We're just going to repeat it over and over again.
This is my new favorite segment. All
Anyway.
right, my turn.
What do you got?
I'm going with Princeton. Where's the love for the Princeton Tigers? Because they're 5-0. They're currently ranked 11th. I can't believe they're outside the top 10. They just beat San Diego State 27-18. I know San Diego State.
They gave up 18 goals,
They
though.
gave up 18 goals.
It's like a football
But
score.
they scored 27 goals. It was a wild game. And, we know the names there. Marge Donovan had a big day in the draw control circle. And then you've got Kyla Sears. How about this freshman midfielder, Nina Montez from Chicago, Illinois? 5 goals and an assist in that game. She had just 1 goal in her entire career before she went out and played against San Diego State. So there's a little bit of something brewing. They have wins at USC by 5. They beat Temple, a good program, by 4. They beat UVA at UVA on opening day, 17-11. 5th best offense in the country. And you say, okay, who are you taking out, Tom? Duke and Michigan are teams that I think should be below Princeton in the poll at this point. Duke, yes, they've had a nice start, good offense. You lose the Syracuse. You don't have a lot of other big wins other than that. Princeton has a better resume, as they do over Michigan as well. Princeton needs to get some more love here because they deserve to be a top 10 program. They haven't lost.
You're right.
Both those teams have. Duke and Michigan both have a loss.
You're right.
And
okay.
So where's
All right.
the love?
Where's the love? By the way, shout out to Emily Glagalev, the grad student for Arizona State. 20 points so far in 5 games, averaging 4 points per game. I forgot to give her a shout out.
All right, you got another one?
Yeah, I've got it. This one I'm not quite as emphatic about. I do think where is the love for Loyola? Same type situation as with Princeton. Now, Loyola's ranked 7th, so it's a tougher argument in terms of how much higher they're going to go. But this Greyhounds team, to me, has the makings of what could be a Final Four type contender. Now, they're going to have to beat somebody above them, whether it's like one of those top 4 teams, a Northwestern, a Syracuse, a Maryland, or a BC or North Carolina. They're going to have to beat one of those teams in order to do it. But they've got Livy Rosenzweig that has the makings of a player who could be a tour time candidate. You've got Kailyn Larson in goal, who's top 15 in the country in save percentage so far. They're 6-0. They've taken care of business. They beat Florida 12-9 this past weekend, and probably their best win to date. I'm really interested to see how they continue to battle this year, because this is a team that at times has given Syracuse the last couple years some problems with this roster. I do think that they have the makings of a team that could compete for championship.
They're more
weekend.
athletic, Loyola, I think, this year than they have been. They have the experience to go along with that. And like, I think you're right. I think they could inch themselves up a little bit higher and maybe deserve a little bit more love after you watch them play. You go, oh, that's a team that probably could get into that middle, second-tier echelon if they can work.
And that's where I think they are. I don't think. I mean, I think BC and Carolina are in the whole tier of their own. And then it's kind of a mix of some other people.
Different world up there. All right, I got one more. I'm going, and I'm sort of bringing these two together, Princeton and Rutgers. Rutgers is 12th. Princeton was 11th. So I'm pretty much, I want to replace Duke and Michigan with Princeton and Rutgers in the top 10. Rutgers 8-0, best start in school history. They just beat JMU 12-5 on Saturday. They beat number 18 Temple 15-9 on Wednesday. So those aren't close games. Those are dominating performance at that. They forced 20 turnovers against JMU. They won the draw 14-7. Terilyn Nazlansky, 30 goals, top 10 in the nation. She can score, and they can score as well. They got a couple of 29-goal scorers, high points, 10th best offense, 5th best defense in the country Rutgers has so far. Yeah, they haven't played the best competition, but at this point in the season, you haven't given them they haven't given you reason to doubt them just yet.
Yeah.
So I think that they should be in the top 10 as well. They will get their test at Maryland on Saturday.
Oh.
They will get their test.
Well, how do you think that one's going to go?
Well, I think that Maryland is very strong this year, but
they are very good.
You never know. That's why they play the game, as they say.
All right.
So I do think Rutgers deserves more love heading. That should be a top 10 battle, in my opinion. I think that's what they have deserved and worked for. So Rutgers, the women, deserve a little bit more love.
Well, now we'll see what they've got. A team that has gotten a good amount of love, and deservedly so far this year, the Stony Brook women. They got a game against Hofstra this weekend right here on LSN on Friday.
Yes, they do, and I'm calling that game.
You got that.
Excited for that, and because of that, we got a nice catch-up time with a couple of the young stars, Kailyn Hart and Ellie Masera. So we bring in a couple of Stony Brook players here, Kailyn Hart and Ellie Masera, if you're looking from left to right on your screen. Tom, Travis, Kailyn, and Ellie. So we got all that straight. Ladies, appreciate you guys coming on. How beautiful weather at practice, warming up into spring, I'd imagine, Ellie, right?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, you guys have had a nice start to your season here once again, and a couple of players here that you're probably trying to make a mark. I guess for you guys, how is that on your mind to sort of continue the legacy of this program?
We're definitely trying to continue the legacy of a great program and building on that. Like me and Ellie are stepping up, obviously, and we also have a bunch of other players that are stepping up with us, like Siobhan, Raina. We have a bunch of hardworking people on our team, and that's what's helping us just grow this season.
Ellie, for you, I know this is a big day for you because you just found out that you're the IWLCA National Player of the Week, and I know Coach Joe Spallina just announced it in practice. What was that moment like to have the team around you when you found out you got that honor?
It's definitely really special because I know everyone has my back, and I really wouldn't be able to be where I am without everyone because it's a total team effort. I think if one person gets awarded something, it speaks volumes for the whole team. So.
Yeah, that's really cool. And obviously you had a big summer. You had that Team USA tryout, the youngest to be out there. And Cameron was out there. She actually played for Team Canada this last fall. Some of that experience, I guess, on just a different platform. What's that mean for you and like teammates that you've seen in the past go through that too?
I think it speaks volumes for how well our program is, and how good our program is. We had Allie go there too. We had one of our assistant coaches. I know she didn't play for us, but we had Cam, me, Raina was there. We had so many players, Mac. So it's really cool to have everyone there.
Kailyn, Tom kind of hit on this before, but when you join this program and you're following the likes of what Kylie Ohlmiller did, and then Taryn, obviously, and Courtney Murphy and Allie Kennedy, who you guys have just played with, what's it like to try to continue that legacy? And now, especially when you have some of those players leave who have been All-Americans, and now it's your turn to kind of step into the spotlight.
It's definitely huge shoes to fill. It's definitely a lot of work, but we continue to work hard every day. Like, people who come to practice, we're always competing, making each other better, and that's how we're going to grow, and that's how we're going to get better, and that's how we're going to make it to the national championship that we want to win. And someone's going to have to be the people that are going to step up, and if it has to be Ellie, if it has to be anyone else, we're all going to step up and take the part.
I'm sure you look for moments as steps forward. And the win at Florida, I think for a lot of people, that obviously, I don't know if it was a shock, but for you guys, that you've always struggled as a program against Florida in the past, Kailyn. What did that mean for you guys to actually go down there and beat them?
That was a huge win. Like you said, we always struggled against Florida. Like, we always had trouble winning in that stadium. But this year, we were going there. We were taking that win. We weren't taking anything else. And I think as a group, as a team, we put our best foot forward, and we took that game.
And probably some personal connections for you there. I think your sister Kelsey had played lacrosse, your brother football at Florida. Is there a little bit of something involved there for you too?
Definitely. My sister was a little she didn't know which side to root for, but at the end she was rooting for me.
Ellie, obviously that was a big win for you guys. You also had some tough losses so far this year against teams that are just above you in the national rankings. What have you guys learned from the losses, whether it's to Syracuse early or to Northwestern just a week or so ago?
I think we came out kind of slow in Northwestern, and I think we showed a lot of character with the way we ended the game and coming back. And I think if we had that first or second quarter back, I think we would have taken that win. And I think we've learned a lot. Like, we have to come out strong in the first 2 quarters in order to not dig ourselves into a hole, because if we had a better first 2 quarters, I think we would have won.
I mean, you guys both scored 4 goals this past weekend against Johns Hopkins. Unfortunately, that was another slow start, and then you go off on a 15-1 run. I mean, what happened? what was going on?
I think we didn't want the same thing to happen that happened at Northwestern, and I think, again, we learned from that game, and I think we came out and we were like, they're not scoring again. So they only scored once.
Yeah, we didn't let them score again.
Yeah.
Quarters.
I will say that sounds like something Joe Spallina would say in a huddle, like, we're not letting him score again.
Yeah.
For both of you, what's it like to play for Joe? Because you see all sides of him, whether it's interviews or on the sideline. Like, what's it like when you're in that locker room or you're one-on-one with him in a coach's meeting? Like, what's he like?
He's great. He always pushes us to be our best. He makes those little sarcastic or little nitpicks at you, but it's from the bottom of his heart, because he wants you to be the best you can be. And I think if he's quiet towards you, that's when it's the worst. You always want him saying something to you, or whether it be the worst thing in the world or the best thing in the world. You just need him talking to you, because that means that he's just trying to coach you, trying to make you better.
How much of that style of play, do you guys embrace, and that comes from the top from him or everybody else, of sort of that flair, going BTBs and things like that? How much of that is a part of the philosophy?
I definitely think it's from him. He always tells us to be comfortable being uncomfortable. So he enforces us to try new things, and whether it be a BTB or an around the world or a different play, a different dodge, he always tries to teach us different things so we can build our game and be a better team as a whole.
Ellie, he's a pretty good motivator. I mean, he motivates me when I talk to him in an interview, so I'm sure he motivates you. What's the team mantra or motto that you guys have tried to establish throughout the fall or spring? That's something you feel like it's a calling card for this year's team?
Well, he always says, if you put the key in a machine, it turns, and it always goes on the same way. So I think everyone has that sort of mentality, and every practice is, we're gonna put in 100%, we're gonna put the key in, and it's gonna work the same. So we're always gonna go 100%, and so I think that's probably
and Absolutely.
It works.
It's been working. You can say that for sure. I mean, you've played tough in every single game. Ellie, I wanted to ask you, you talk about that, you come in and this kind of mentality. And your acclimation from high school to college obviously went really, really well, too. And Kailyn, you could say that as too. It was a little bit, Kailyn had the COVID year to start, but that's a different story. Obviously, you both have dealt with that over time. But, Ellie, I wanted to ask you about your family, because you grew up in this lacrosse family. You got three sisters, your father very involved. How much of that has impacted you and your growth, especially at the college level?
I think it was great. We had Kailyn last year, who's actually my cousin, and Kelsey's over at USC. But I think having Kailyn on the team last year, it really helped me, because transitioning to college from high school to college is it's really hard, and the game is so different. It's so much faster, so much more aggressive. So I think having Kailyn there was definitely the best thing that could have happened, honestly, just so that she could give me some advice and just tell me guidance.
Kailyn, you talk about just jumping onto the scene as a freshman in that COVID year. What was it like? Your first 2 games, you were on SportsCenter's top 10. You've had some pretty unreal goals throughout your early part of your college career. What's been your favorite?
Definitely the Syracuse behind the back.
The first one?
Yeah, the first one. The whole day went just the win. It was an unreal win. The feeling being in the dome, it was just unmatched energy, and I'll never forget that day. That was an insane day.
Well, something else I wanted to ask you about, Kailyn, was you recently were named as one of the Tunnel to Towers Foundation Student Athlete Advocates. It's a program about teaching others about the history of 9/11, and of course Stony Brook on Long Island there, not too far from New York City. I wanted to ask you, why is that meaningful for you and important to spread sort of the message and helping people remember this?
So my dad was a New York City firefighter, and he actually fought in the 9/11 attacks. So this program or foundation is supposed to just get the word out, and it actually helps pay for people's mortgages who are suffering from 9/11 causes or health issues or whatever. It helps pay for mortgages and just gets the word out there to donate. And there's also different kind of events runs and tower climbs that everyone can attend, and all the money will go to that foundation and help people.
That's so cool, and so obviously such an important cause for so many people who risk their lives to go in there and try to save others. That's really cool. Well, Tom, you got anything else?
No, that was great. Appreciate both of you, and I'm on the call for your game on Friday, so we expect a good show. All right, the Battle of Long Island. There's got to be a little bit more on that, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
You guys know each other probably on each team?
Yeah, we know each other, but we're ready to go.
Long Island goes deep. You know everybody on probably half the teams in the country.
Yeah.
That's true.
Lacrosse world is a big world.
Ellie, Kailyn, we appreciate the time so much. Thank you, and good luck this weekend.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having us.
Great hearing from those two. A fun team, as always, Stony Brook. Seems like they always got fun, colorful athletes on a yearly basis.
What time's the game on Long Island this weekend?
7 p.m. on Friday night.
Are you sure about that?
I almost forgot.
Okay.
7 p.m. on Friday.
Tom will be there. Ready to roll.
We have a lot of action this weekend. We've got that game on Friday and the women's, and then we have a Sunday game as well. So
yeah, you got Florida and Drexel on Sunday. I've got Rutgers and Hofstra men on Saturday, and then Sunday night, Delaware and Hopkins. Standalone game Sunday night right here on LSN between two teams that are right there in that top 20 conversation. So that should be a terrific barometer for both between Delaware and Hopkins.
So yes, that's why I could remember. We have a lot of times and games and teams that we
4 games for you. 4 live college lacrosse games we're producing on LSN.
Buckle up, everybody.
It's gonna be fun.
All right, speaking of buckle up, NLL. Wild weekend. Let's see. We had Halifax lose twice. We had Panther City put up a 20 spot against the Colorado Mammoth.
Most goals that have been scored by any team in the league this year.
The Seals beat the Rush by 1. The Riptide beat Rochester. Swarm had the second win over Halifax. The Bandits went to beat Philly 17-5.
Yeah.
The Rock beat Vancouver 14-5. Craziness. So
We have to do power rankings.
we were like, yeah, we got to do power rankings today. Everything's sort of reset. Also, today was a trade deadline, so that we'll see how that impacts things moving forward. Might include a couple of those as the day goes on. All right. I don't reveal.
Yeah, let's reveal it. Just go through. And for people listening here, we'll run through them. Buffalo at 1 still. Halifax stays at 2. We'll get to all the descriptions here in a second. San Diego 3, Toronto 4, Albany 5, Georgia 6, Colorado 7. Second half, Vancouver 8, Philly 9, Panther City moving up to 10, Calgary at 11, Saskatchewan 12, Riptide and Nighthawks at 13th and 14th.
Yes. So I think it was not a no-brainer. It was a no-brainer for the Buffalo to move to number 1. They were number 2 last week. Dane Smith's been awesome. 57 assists this year. Second place is Jeff Teat, the rookie. He's got 44. That's how much better Dane Smith's been than everybody else. And you got Matt Vince, who, I mean, you almost forget how good they are in the back end because they're so good on the front end. But Matt Vince, number 1 in save percentage.
They're the best team in the league.
Yeah.
And you know, Halifax at times has felt like, all right, maybe they can compete, but it just feels like when Buffalo wants to be great and they want to dominate somebody, they can.
Yeah, I think you're right. And so we move on, and you mentioned Halifax, and it's really interesting. So they did make the trade. They made a couple of trades. First, they got Sean Evans from Rochester. Evans against Albany, 3 assists, 8 shots on goal. He finally got a goal against the Swarm and had an assist. Was wondering how he's going to acclimate, and that might have been a part of this weekend. They also, Halifax had to go from Halifax to Georgia in a 1 day's time. So that's another factor
weekend
here. So they had a kind of a rough go trying to implement Evans, and they also traded away Stephen LeBlanc to Panther City for Dawson Teedy. So they're trying to clear things up. And I think the question mark is how Sean Evans is going to incorporate into this offense. And I think that's going to be the big thing moving forward for them.
Yeah, it's a big star that you bring in that you have to figure out, like, what does he do and how does he fit into what we already have? The one thing, and here's the reason for me that you keep Halifax at 2 where we have
I wanted them at 3. Personally.
Yeah.
I thought the Seals deserved to be second, but...
I mean, I'll get to San Diego here in a second. But the reason you keep Halifax up there, in my estimation, is both losses were by 1. And to me, Albany is starting to show us like they are a team that can contend in the East. So I kind of excuse that one. And then the Georgia thing is exactly what you said. You went down and you lost by 1 goal to a team that, quite frankly, is kind of desperate for a bunch of wins. They need them now if you're the Swarm.
Yeah.
And it's the second game of a back-to-back weekend for you. I obviously not the weekend you want if you're the Thunderbirds, but I can excuse it with what we've seen so far this season. For San Diego, the loss this weekend really says a lot to me because they're 0-1 against the East, which to me, when you look at all these teams in the East, or from the West, when they've played anybody in the East, they're not good results. And so to me, it just seems like it's very East heavy in terms of the teams that are the best in the league right now. And so I'm giving the edge to Halifax over San Diego.
Well,
despite this fact the Seals have a slightly better record.
The Seals had a nice win over the Rush over the weekend.
Yeah, great, but the Rush are in the bottom of our power rankings.
I know. I'm just saying, like, you don't have to penalize. You can't penalize them for a win.
No, but they're 0-1 against the East.
They also, another thing here is if we want to factor in these trades and how these rosters look now, San Diego just acquired Brett Hickey from the Philadelphia Wings. So that is something that's going to really help reinforce their right side. So they're going to get even better on offense. They've been good on defense. Chiliano has been really good for them this year. He is number 2 in save percentage, first in goals against average. I don't know. I think that you have a little bit more of a parallel in the West in terms of how Buffalo has sort of found themselves some separation with San Diego out there. Because I think that there's some similarities in just the way they work, both offensively and defensively. They're both very well-balanced squads, in my estimation.
I just want to see him beat somebody that I think is really good. Like, they beat Vancouver, and they've beat Colorado, and they've beat Saskatchewan. Like, I mean, Colorado goes and gets
their 2 losses
blown
are
out by
to Albany
Panther City.
and Vancouver. Those are the 2 losses for the Seals.
Well,
they beat everybody else.
The only team in the East they've played is Albany.
Right.
So I just don't know how they're ever going to compare with a team like Buffalo or a Halifax or a Toronto.
I'm going to go on the other side of the fence here to help reinforce your point. The West this year is 2-7 against the East. So that is also why I swayed. I said, okay, I'll give Halifax the benefit of the doubt for this week.
Look, I'm not saying that they're a bad team. I just think there's a reason we have the East as 4 of the top 5 teams in these power rankings, and it's a reason because whenever they've played anybody in the West from the West, the teams in the East, even the teams that are in the middle of the East, are beating some of the top teams in the West.
I mean, the Rocks stay at 4 with all that after the blowout victory over Vancouver.
Yep. Another win.
They have been looking solid and getting better and better as the season goes on. You've got the Firewolves. They move up a spot to 5th. Like you said, they feel like they're trending in the right direction. Feels like they have for a while now.
Yeah.
Nardella, number 1 in the league, 69.8% for Joey. That's pretty good.
By the way, shout out to TD Erlin, who got his first career NLL goal for Toronto.
I believe he's 4th in the league in faceoff percentage. Not bad for a first-year guy.
Yeah.
Then you have the Swarm, who they did try to get better of the trade deadline. They added LeBlanc. So LeBlanc went from Halifax to Texas. Now he's over in Georgia. So they did add some help to the offensive end, which they needed, by the way. So they do add LeBlanc to Swarm there. And meanwhile, you've got the Mammoth. The Mammoth could be moving their way up because they made a couple of deals today that could change a lot. They acquired Tyson Gibson from the New York Riptide.
That's a big addition.
A top draft pick from a couple years ago. And with Jeff Teat in town, Jeff Teat sort of took control of the entire thing. So, and that's fine. Gibson's been good, 8 goals, 20 assists. And so Mammoth ship out Digby, Ron John, and a 2024 first-round pick. They get Gibson. They also acquired Anthony Joaquim from Philly. So the 6th best offense in the league, and they're trying to reinforce that side a little bit more.
By the way, a lot of 2024 draft picks going trading hands.
Interesting.
Here in the
Interesting that that's the year they're being chosen by. But
intriguing.
That's a different story altogether.
Anyway, the only one more thing I have to say about the bottom of the power rankings, Saskatchewan. I don't get it.
They were 9th last week. They moved down to 12th.
Panther City deserved to move up. They deserve to make the jump. That's a big win over Colorado.
Yeah, Panther City, were they last the prior week? I think they were down there, but they move up to 10th because they looked like a different team. Patrick Dodds is playing great.
Should have kept that
stock. He was my stock, and he's the 2nd highest scoring rookie in the league right now behind Jeff Teat. And, for a team in Panther City who we knew that this wasn't their year. I mean, they drafted Jonathan Donville, for Pete's sake, and Donville's out playing in Maryland. And they're like, okay, the future looks...
Well, wait. No, he says, wait.
I thought you told me to wait.
No, you keep going.
So they draft him, and they're like, okay, we'll start to, invest in the future, whatever. But, I mean, that's not investing in the future when you go out and put a 20 spot. That shows you real promise, and I love that. That's good for the league, too.
It is good for the league.
That's really cool.
It's good to see, a team, whether it's a New York or a San Diego or a Panther City, it's good to see them have some early success because it means for another team, because they're eyeing other teams, obviously Vegas next year, maybe another one in the next couple of years. It shows that, in the first couple of years, if we do make a couple of interesting moves and different moves, we can have success right away. We don't have to wait 5, 6, 7 years down the road to actually start winning.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's what happened on the floor this weekend. Obviously, a lot happening off the floor. We'll see who the commissioner is going to be here soon, hopefully, and figure all that out as time goes on. But that does it here for this edition of Lacrosse Now.
Yeah, it's all the time we got. We will be right back here Thursday to preview a
St.
busy
Patty's Day
weekend
edition
of college lacrosse. Our midweek moment, we'll share that as well. We got a busy Tuesday and Wednesday this week. So
you wearing green? Thursday?
I guess I have to.
Okay.
Sure.
Are you Irish?
Yeah, partially, yeah.
Me too. Yeah.
Okay.
Nice. How about
we'll
that?
Celebrate St. Patrick's Day with you on
Just
Thursday.
a couple of Irishmen. See you later, everybody. Have a good one. Top of the morning to yous.